We have our first Champions League finalist. Inter Milan defeat AC Milan 3-0 in aggregate, 1-0 on the night. And this is their first final since 2009 and 2010 under Jose Mourinho when they won the treble. Luis Miguel Echegaray in the house. And of course, Janusz, Michallik to recap the action and to talk a little bit more as well about Real Madrid and Man City. But first, Simone Inzaghi, Inter Milan, they're in the Champions League final. Janusz, Michallik, your initial reactions, my friend.
Look, I just had a good feeling about Inter. I really did. And you know, you've mentioned Jose Mourinho. And one of my first thoughts when I was watching in the group stage, remember, I mean, in the group stage, they had it tough with Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich at that time, with Nagelsmann winning everything, right? They won all 6 games or all 8 with him. But in the group, I mean, Inter did very well in that group as well. So I thought they were tested. Obviously, it's easy to say that, you know, then came Porto, although they were very tight games. And that's why it reminds me a little bit of Jose Mourinho. When I was watching these games against Porto, and even the first game, remember when they beat Benfica away, it was something that I always, maybe I overthink this with Jose Mourinho, but to me, Inter has that defensive organizational DNA when they need it. It very often lets them win big games or stay in them. Of course, the second game against Benfica was 3-1 and there was some drama in the end, but I just always feel that it doesn't really matter to them how they win it. When those big moments come in, they find ways over the years. And that's why at the time, I actually thought after the group stages, you know, then of course I saw Porto as the first opponent. I said to myself, you know what? I think Inter has a chance to get to the final. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I had a really good chance that, thought that they would be there. And here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And you're being humble, my friend. Janusz Michallik on Polish TV.
It's a humble brag. It's a humble.
Janusz Michallik on Polish TV said in the group stages that Inter Milan would get to the final. They laughed at him, and look at him now and Inter Milan. Janusz, you need to brag. You deserve it.
Doesn't happen very often, so I'll take my glory. It was a humble brag.
And we'll talk about the chances of either Real Madrid or Man City against Inter later on. But it was a win for Inter as well, 1-0 on the night. Lautaro Martínez, by the way, his 99th goal for Inter Milan. One more, of course, and he'll be the 11th player for Inter to score that century. So that's fantastic for him. And obviously, Romelu Lukaku holding the ball with the assist. He'll be returning to Chelsea unless something magical happens between then and now. But Janusz, Inter Milan, we talked about them. I was very disappointed with AC Milan. Pioli didn't make an offensive change till after that goal as well. What did you make of Pioli's AC Milan today?
Well, I mean, who are you going to bring, right? I mean, the biggest difference is, of course, the benches of both sides. We could see that in the first game. The first game obviously sets it up because I think, when you lose, the first goal, it's a soft set piece, something that Milan has had issues this season and as of late as well. And then, of course, the first goal, then comes the second very, very quickly because it's, I think Milan were a little bit shell-shocked that I think the approach of Inter was very, very interesting. And as we've heard in the commentary, at least here, it's true. I mean, they play the wings back very, very high. They made it very difficult for Milan to build out of the back. And the goals made that easy. And they could have had that tie done in the first half. They didn't. They opened, they opened the window. They did maybe put an exclamation mark on that. But in this game, I just felt that they were always in control. You just didn't feel looking at Leao and the way they dealt with him in the second game. Again, Inter don't care. They came home because that was a home game for them. And all of a sudden, instead of very high fullbacks, they knew that they had to pay attention to Leao. It happened exactly with Dumfries, who was, they were basically playing with 5 in the back. Even Di Marco had to go a little bit more back because I thought that Junior Messias, I don't think he did a great job, but better than Salamakers in the first game.
Yeah, and Rafa Leao definitely didn't seem 100%. That was for sure.
Well, he was always in the wrong positions, as you saw it. But, I mean, give Dumfries a lot of credit. I mean,
what a player Dumfries.
Very often one-on-one. Inter were forcing him inside. And, I mean, it's funny to look at this game because Milan had a little bit of joy on the outside. But the only reason for that is that you just can't get through that Inter's midfield. I mean, if you watch them tactically, the way they think, the way they compensate for each other, those three players in the midfield, and even when Mkhitaryan went off injured, Brozovic obviously changes maybe that shape of that midfield just a little bit, but it's almost for the better, isn't it? I mean, here's Brozovic, who would normally be, if not for injuries, probably picks himself in every starting 11 there. So Milan were forced to play outside, and yet their best player spent most of his time coming inside. So that was kind of interesting. I thought that maybe Junior Messias, some of those early crosses, those in-swingers, had a chance, but Giroud was just never able to get on the end of them.
Yeah, a very stoic Inter Milan for sure. And as we reminded you in the intro, a final in the Champions League for the first time since 2009, 2010. How about a word here for the goalkeeper, specifically Onana? There, Janusz Michallik, the most saves in the Champions League, keeps a clean sheet in both legs. What a keeper, huh?
Yeah, but, probably Mike Maignan too. I mean, one mistake in the end, but I mean, ahead of that, he kept Milan in this tie for the longest time, because you kind of always felt that if Milan somehow gets a goal, then of course everybody gets a little bit nervous. Yes, Onana and Maignan, one of the best in Europe. No questions about that. They have proven over and over. I mean, not a lot to deal there for Onana, but every time he's called upon, even those half chances here and there, I think assured of himself, right? I mean, he really feels good having those three players in front of him, very often five. And then when you add that magical midfield, I suppose his job is a little bit easier, but still at times you have to prove to everybody in front of you that when called upon, you can get the job done. Onana did. I felt for Mike Maignan, because today, I mean, that save on Dzeko, yeah, I mean, it's reflex, but you still have to save it. And even there were two saves where there were fouls called and one offside. I don't know if you remember, very early in the game, Mike Maignan saved a volley.
Yeah, the one-hander with his left.
From Edin Dzeko was unbelievable. That, of course, that wouldn't have counted, but it gave them the confidence that he was showing throughout the game, until, of course, I guess you look at that goal squeezed in on the near post, you feel that he needs to do better.
Yeah, tremendous performance from both keepers for sure. Let's focus on the managers for a second. Let's go to the losing one for a bit, because there was a little bit of murmuring, Janusz Michallik, about the fact that, Pioli, he loses this one or loses this one badly, and his job could be on the line. I mean, I know it's tough. AC Milan won the league last season. They're fifth in Serie A right now. They lead right here. What do you make of Pioli's fate and his future moving on from here?
It's going to be difficult, because there's no excuse. I mean, you can concentrate on the Champions League, of course. A team like Inter or Milan, I mean, obviously it's been a while. So I think, Italian teams, Serie A teams, have been a great surprise in Europe this season as well, proving that there's more to life than just Premier League and maybe La Liga, if you will. Those are usually the two that we talk about, maybe before Bundesliga or Serie A. But yes, that cycle has ran. I mean, what they've done or haven't done in Serie A is quite incredible. Even, the last game against Spezia, fighting for their life, losing their 2-0. I just think that, you look at the season, normally when you're in the semifinal of the Champions League, you say to yourself, my goodness, what a season. I wonder what they're going to be thinking, because I, as a player, will look at it, well, an opportunity lost against our biggest rival to be in the final, right? If you Milan, Istanbul obviously has a bigger meaning there to maybe get things right. And then you look at them now, fifth place, 4 points behind. I mean, it's not impossible, but highly unlikely they'll make it. And I just can't imagine what a letdown that will be, the loss today, in terms of getting the players up. So unless Pioli somehow finds a way to get back in the Champions League next season, I highly doubt it. And even if he did, I still think that Milan will look for somebody else.
Yeah, at this moment, AC Milan are 4 points away from Lazio, who are in fourth place, and the games are obviously ending very soon as the season is wrapping up. Let's go to Simone Inzaghi, who beats his brother's team today, but, he's pretty much a cup manager. We were talking about this. I mean, he's won Coppa Italia, came second last season as well, and obviously now a Champions League final. What do you make of his tenure so far?
Well, it's been good. It's been up and down a little bit too, because there were question marks of him not that long ago as well, obviously. So I think he got it together. As we've mentioned, when he came in for Antonio Conte, you could see he's changed that game a little bit. Not as pragmatic. I think they moved the ball a little bit quicker through the lines, and I think that was visible right away. I can remember the comparisons that people were trying to put out there, and you thought to yourself, this is a little bit different. Inter still defensively sound, as I said. I'm convinced that that is and will be forever their DNA, and that's a good thing, because you got to get that part of the game first. And then, when you look at the season that Lautaro Martínez has had, and even now Lukaku as of late, right? I mean, we still remember 2 years ago how fantastic they were. And now I look what he's done with a player like Edin Dzeko, who today, what do you think, Lewis? I mean, he looked like he was 25 years old. He was absolutely
I love Edin
everywhere.
Dzeko, Janusz. I love him so much.
But that decision still not easy to make. To kind of, Dzeko is my starting player, not Romelu Lukaku, who, as we said, finally 2 years ago, they found a way for those two to coexist, and they were wonderful together. Lautaro and Lukaku looking for each other, both scoring. Lukaku had a great season, all of that. So to now kind of say, no, I'm going to change this a little bit. I can see Lukaku giving us something special coming off the bench, of course, with, the way he is, powerful player, last 20, 25 minutes. But I'm sure that wasn't easy to sell to Lukaku in that way. And Dzeko has paid back. So I think, we also have to mention what everybody's talking about. The back three has changed dramatically. You look at Skriniar, the Frey not being there. So, I think you got to give him credit for that, because I do think this season, when there were a lot of talk about Simone Inzaghi perhaps maybe not being at Inter next season.
Yeah, and you never know with Inter Milan. We were talking about that before the taping, because there's always financial issues and ownership issues, etc. But
not only that, because Inter's situation is slightly better, and Simone Inzaghi is slightly better than Milan, but it's not great, because think about it. I mean, for me, last season when Milan won it somehow, because I'm still not sure how they did it, all the credit goes to them. I'm a big fan of Milan, as you know, but and this season with Napoli, we both probably looked at the squad of Inter, and how can you possibly be that far away, at least this season, to Napoli? It's nearly impossible. There's too much quality for them to still be in the fourth. And, they still have to get it done. So Inter are there, a little bit better than Milan, but you can't say that this has been a great season for Simone Inzaghi. Maybe he's just finding that rhythm and the formula, if you will, late, and maybe that saves him. But I think we have to understand that this hasn't been great for Inter, at least not in my book.
There's a chance for them to keep up with Juventus, only 3 points behind in Serie A. Now, of course, a Champions League final. But, Janusz, the squad will look a little bit different. And by the way, we're trying to see if we can get our friend Gab Marcotti coming in, because he's at the stadium at the San Siro, but I'm just laughing my head off in our chat because he's trying to find the jack for his headphones. It's hilarious. But anyway, he wrote a great piece on ESPN about obviously the squad and the attackers, etc. Let's talk a little bit about who they might face in the final. Man City, Real Madrid, obviously a massive fixture as well. Would, Janusz, Inter Milan rather play Manchester City or Real Madrid in the final? What do you think?
Oof. It's one of those. I mean, it's very few times, I'll make up an answer sometimes if I have to. I don't know what to say. No, but this one, first of all, I have zero idea for the first time, because you just don't know. The quality of both teams are for that to everyone to see. Manchester City, I think, at their best that we've seen in a long, long time. Real Madrid, maybe not at their best, but yet in this competition, not only they own it, but they know how to play with it. And they've gone through, if you look at just the gauntlet they had to go through last season, through the teams they had to go through to win it. And they continue to show over and over and over again that not only they can win, but look, playing English teams, zero problems. Liverpool 2-0 down, winning 5-2. Chelsea, no problem whatsoever. Great game against Manchester City at home, tactically at least. So I think it's a team that understands now that they can't fear anyone. However, part of me thinks that because Manchester City for me are slight favorites. part of me as a neutral would like to see Pep Guardiola see this through, because this team, he's changing a little bit, and let's not get into money here, what they buy and Haaland. I get that, but you still have to be able to make these guys play this way, right? And very few coaches can accomplish that. So part of me thinks that, but if they win the final against Inter, it's going to be possession, possession, possession. And what I've just said, that Inter know how to suffer. They don't mind suffering, so maybe against Manchester City, they'd feel that they can last through the game. Whereas Real Madrid brings you that superb counter-attacking game. By the way, not that Manchester City can do it, but, with Rodrigo, with Vinny Jr., with Benzema, I almost wonder if they would feel that against Manchester City, they would have a way to frustrate them.
Yeah, if this was a two-legged affair,
right, it's different, and that's a big point.
A different story. When it's a final in a neutral ground, and all you need to do is win, not play well, not control possession, just win, get the job done. I would venture to say, and I know it sounds insane, that I think Man City is probably the better opponent, but that's just,
right.
It's a ludicrous argument, because obviously they both have their strengths. But like you said, the counter-attacking threat of Benzema, I mean, they can hurt you in a blink. And that's the problem.
I mean, we've seen in the first game that Real Madrid is okay with conceding the ball, which would force, of course, Inter to start to play a little bit, which they can, but then you kind of opened up. With Manchester City, nobody's going to cry that Manchester City has 82% of possession, right? Inter's just going to sit there for as long as they're not being broken down. I think they'll be okay with it. So I know it's a small margin, thin line, just a bit of, I hope, educated guess that the style, the clashes there, just almost wonder. And that, by the way, is if you can frustrate Manchester City, because Manchester City can start fast and then you never see the ball and it's the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely right. All right, we're getting really specific with these fan questions, Janusz, I'm sorry to say, but you're going to have to try and give me your best here. The percentage chance of Inter Milan beating Man City or Real Madrid, the percentage chance out of 100%.
I'd still give him, 30-40%. I would almost want to say higher, because sometimes you feel it, and I don't want to call this destiny, because I don't know that at any point I could say that Inter was the team of destiny, right? I mean, they did have a couple opponents, maybe not of the highest level, but it's just that DNA, and maybe I'm influenced by my age a little bit, the Inter teams that I remember and know, and the way they can frustrate you just feels that they will have a say in that, right? But I still think that if it's Real Madrid or Manchester City, they're just a little bit deeper. Although this is a pretty deep Inter team that we often don't talk about.
Yeah, I'm with you on the 30-40% as well. And it's a final, everybody. Neutral ground, Istanbul. It's going to be very interesting to see who they face, whether it's Real Madrid or Manchester City. Hey, one final question about Inter Milan for a second, more from a transfer speculation. Do you see Lautaro Martínez leaving this summer? He's a major target for many Premier League clubs, Chelsea included. Do you think he's staying, going? What do you think?
Look, he could have gone before that, right? You've mentioned there's been some issues, ongoing issues with Inter. It's not like this is a team with any sort of money. Sunik there, if I remember
correctly. They need
correctly,
to sell, always.
They continue to sell players. They want to sell themselves. They're always looking for investors, and yet they're able to kind of put together this very good squad of players. And a lot of these players could be leaving, but yet they're staying. So it just makes me wonder, because, if they win it, I don't know if they will go. If they don't, that's sometimes, sometimes you want to have a second go and maybe, do something, not just in the Champions League, but win the Scudetto as well, which I think, as I've said, they look back at the last 2 years and they have to wonder, how did Milan and Napoli win it and not them? Yeah. So I don't know. Inter is funny. Don't you think Lautaro Martínez could have left already? Then you have Lukaku, who did leave, and then no, I want to get back to Serie A. I want to get back to Inter. That usually doesn't happen. And and I look at players like Brozovic, Barella, today I look at Barella. I feel the same way. Looked at his stats, and he didn't really win that many balls per se, but his presence alone creates so much chaos that the opposition gives the balls away. He pressures players into mistakes. And then Mkhitaryan, coming from Roma, we sort of forgot about him, right? But, in Roma, great season. He comes in, continues to grow. And almost anywhere you look, Di Marco, I mean, come on. I mean, I know Di Marco, but I never thought of him as that sort of a player. Dumfries now reminds me of when was he so good? That was European Championships. Remember when he came on the scene? It wasn't the World Cup. I mean, we were like Dumfries, and he struggled with that team, had to fight and win his position here, because remember, he didn't always play. I think it was Darmian when all the central backs were healthy. You had Darmian playing on that side as well. So, maybe it's just one of those teams, and you see this atmosphere, right? And you see the love. It's sometimes difficult to leave teams like that.
Yeah,
and I'm sure they're not going to go broke either. So
it's always a team. Whenever you're a team that's always thinking about selling as well, it's always tricky. But the emotional plug is definitely very interesting. Hey, fun fact about Denzel Dumfries: he's named after Denzel Washington. I interviewed him last year, and I asked him to give me his favorite Denzel Washington movie. He couldn't think of it. Forgot about the interview. Whatever. A day later, he sends me a DM, and he goes, "LME. It's The Equalizer," out of nowhere.
I don't know what my favorite was. I don't have a good memory for that.
Come on, Training Day, The Hurricane. Remember the Titans, Janusz Michallik?
Oh, yes, that one. Yeah, that's good. But I'm terrible with names of movies and artists and all that in general. Only football players.
Only football players. All right. Before we wrap up, very, very quickly, just give me a quick overlook. What do you expect tomorrow, Real Madrid, Man City?
I don't know. It feels to me that this is the time where I not that they are, but I don't think Manchester City can be calculating. It's one of those games where you don't want to have any regrets. And even though it's Real Madrid, obviously you have to pay attention not to their players. We've talked about the counterattack, which I'm sure Real Madrid will want to play in that way. But I almost think that it's pedal to the metal, right? That type of performance from Manchester City from the beginning, using the crowd just a little bit, feeling probably the way they should feel, which is they're at their best right now. I mean, they're on the precipice of winning, a treble, I suppose. And the way they're going right now, it'd be hard to tell me that it's not impossible for them. And if we believe that it's the last season of Gundogan and Bernardo Silva may be leaving, there's some unfinished business. You have to say that, because I think Manchester City have been such a good team over the years that you'd like to think that they would have won this competition already. So my feeling is that it's going to be Manchester City sort of, I don't know if you remember that performance against Arsenal, right? Where you kind of want to make a point that, no, we are the boss here. It's going to be much harder against Real Madrid, but this sort of a performance, we're here, and it's ours. That's what I would do if I were Pep.
Well, it would be quite an achievement of the week if they indeed make it to the final once again, and in the weekend seal the Premier League. We're going to have to wait and see. But regardless, doesn't matter. Inter Milan is in the Champions League final for the first time since 2009, 2010. Fantastic to see an Italian team. We'll have to wait and see what happens in Istanbul. For now, Luis Miguel Echegaray, Janusz Michallik, make sure to come back, by the way, because tomorrow my friend Kay Murray as well and Janusz, they'll be back to talk about Real Madrid and Manchester City and much, much more later in the week as well. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.
Ciao.